Like, the controls in that are atrocious. It's like a bunch of people who make JRPGs were like, we're going to make a sports game. I feel like if the Madden team was like, you know what we should make? A JRPG. Welcome back to Cartridge Based Radio. I'm Donald, once again joined by Brad.
Hello.
And we are back in the fall of 97 for more game extravaganza. We've covered GoldenEye, Parappa the Rapper, Felony 1179.
Don't ever forget about Felony 1179.
Final Fantasy VII. And now we arrive at Abe's Oddysee, the game about capitalism gone extreme.
Capitalism being done very poorly, I would say. This is a game about corrupt food company that all the animals that they make their snack cakes out of, they've driven extinct because they don't know how to do things sustainably. And their newest product is made out of their slave laborers. So you play as Abe, who's trying to escape before he gets turned into a tree.
Not only escape, try to get as many of his friends out as possible to avoid them becoming Modakin Pops, which is basically just a head on a lance. It just seems to be that the high level tier people are eating all the other races on this planet, and they seem pretty okay with it, even though one by one the cakes are no longer in stock, because instead of out of stock it just says extinct on the poster. Like, they know what they're doing. They understand.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about how industry and commerce is run in this world. I mean, this is a company that they have a board of directors. Like, the intro scene is actually like the board of directors, like, previewing this new product. Like, somebody needs to be sitting there going, we keep extincting our product line, and whatever we're substituting in for it is probably either not as good or, like, more expensive, because if it was already beneficial, they would have been making that in the first place if it tasted better or if it was cheaper to make. I don't know who's running this company, but they're doing a terrible job just as a business. Like, as an evil antagonist, I guess they're great, but in terms of, like, being a business, like, this isn't how you make money.
Oh no, they are very, very, very bad at what they do. Some would say they're odd. You want to give us all the details on Oddworld Abe's Oddysee?
Oddworld Abe's Oddysee was, as you can probably imagine, released in the fall of 1997. If I had to guess, I'd say September. Might have been in October. I do not have reliable data on the exact date of release. It is kind of a puzzle platformer, I guess you would say, sort of in the vein of like Flashback or Out of This World. Big difference between Abe's Oddysee and Out of This World being that Abe's Oddysee is actually kind of fun.
Oh, Brad.
They had originally planned for this to be a 5-game series, and I don't actually know if they got there.
Let's see, we got Abe's Oddysee, Abe's Exodus, Munch's Odyssey, Stranger's Wrath.
There's 4. I get the feeling that, like, somewhere out there, there's, like, an Abe teaches typing or something, and they're like, that's it! That's our 5th game! We did it!
They had a number 5, and I remember got canceled, and the art that came out of that later was so cool. But the world is not chomping at the bit for new Oddworld, which is sad because even if you're not big on the puzzle platforming genre, the Out of This World Flashback styles, but Abe's Oddysee is so packed full of just artful style. This is a super good looking game. I don't know who came out first, Donkey Kong Country or this.
Donkey Kong Country was a Super Nintendo game, so I gotta think that came out first.
I didn't know if it was like the tail end of the Super Nintendo. That probably no overlap there.
Even if it was, I mean, Abe's was 97, so the Super Nintendo would have been, and they made 3 Donkey Kong Country games, so.
But it's got that same, everything is pre-rendered sprites, so it looks really good. One thing they do really well is, like, when Abe will walk through a door, instead of just loading the next frame, and it's not every screen, it's just every once in a while, the camera will go flying through the environment to show the door he's going to come out of. and then he pops out, and it's a really neat way to connect the world together because the entire world it's so manic. Like, I don't know if you could map all this out and have it make any sort of sense. You start in a factory and you're escaping. You get out real early. I was reading that there's lots of hidden guys to rescue, but I apparently just followed the critical path and was running like mad because you're trying to escape a death squad. And I got outside and died a lot. I died a lot playing this. Younger me made it to the end of this game. Current me is like, I don't remember where to go in this game.
You know, it's kind of part of the design of the game is that there's a lot of trial and error involved. So you die a lot, and that's kind of, I mean, that's just how it works.
But it loads fast.
Yeah, and the checkpoints are pretty frequent, so it's not terribly frustrating. Worst case, you might go back a few screens.
You go back a few screens a lot. I'm sure there's people out there who can do this on one life, and those people are amazing kinds of monsters. So we're going to ignore the sequels in this one, because we're going to take this as a game of Fall of 97, and they didn't know there was going to be more games.
But they did know they were going to. I mean, it was incredibly optimistic of them. Like, right on the inside back of the instruction manual, it says, like, first of the Oddworld quintology. Like, that was really ambitious for, like, a brand new series that no one had ever, like, seen anything about before in this, like, really far out fictional world with a character who's not immediately relatable, like, you know, until you play the game. You know, they were really confident with themselves that this was going to be a hit, that they're like, we're going to make 5 of these.
I am a big Oddworld fan, and I'm sad they don't keep coming out. They remade this game for PlayStation 4 and Xbox and PC, the new and tasty version, where we got polygons instead of pre-rendered backgrounds. But I didn't realize I actually owned that because of PlayStation Plus until like 3 hours ago. I was like, oh man. But we're going with the classic version here because that's what we do. Just focusing on this first game. My question is, the big one, they only show 6 different races or creatures. After everything's extincted, what did the board of directors plan on doing for food?
Well, I don't think they really thought that far ahead. The fact that they're eating their slave laborers, like, says a lot about how mismanaged this place is. Like, that's free labor. And it's, you know, in terms of, like, a business, like, you know, morally, slavery is abhorrent. It's bad. We don't encourage it. But, like, in terms of business, like, that's a huge benefit to you because that's free labor. That's probably one of your biggest expenses. And instead, like, you don't have to pay them or, you know, treat them well or anything. So, and then they're going to eat their slaves instead of, you know, use them to make more money. And on top of that, they also seem to, like, Abe mentions, like, which products he liked, like, that they don't make anymore. And it's like, you know, are they also the customers? Like, are you eating your slave customers? Because that seems really short-sighted.
And at some point, the Modokans are going to have to start processing their own for these Modokan pops. And how do you explain this one off? Because it's not like just a meat stick. It's not a Slim Jim, Modokan Slim Jims. This is a head on a spike that you eat. So they're going to know what's up.
That seems, you know, besides the fact that they're probably not going to want to work on them, if they're also the customers, like, that seems really hard to market. You know, like, the other ones have, like, these catchy posters and everybody's like, ooh, that looks delicious. This is, like, if you went to the store and you went to the meat department and they just had human heads on sticks, you'd be like, I would not like one of those. Please, no. Do not give that to me.
Albertsons, I do not enjoy your store anymore. Would you like to come back and see how they're made? No, we do not. and then you get into a puzzle platforming section trying to get out of the store.
That actually is like the experience of not the human heads on sticks, but having to navigate like through a puzzle platforming maze is pretty much the Albertson shopping experience.
Yeah, that's fair.
Today's episode is brought to you by Albertson.
Oh, we just like finding people who would never advertise with us and making sure that sticks. So, you're pretty vulnerable at the beginning of this game if you don't know that if you chant near the guys with the machine guns, you can control their minds. This leads to a moment in the game, it didn't strike me until about 3 hours in. You can choose to let their mind go or cause them to explode. And if you cause them to explode when the camera comes back to Abe, he laughs.
Yeah.
He thinks it's funny to force so much magic into someone they explode from the inside out while screaming in terror. I mean, sure, they would have shot him on sight, but Abe is real sadistic.
Yeah, and once again, it kind of reflects back on this business that they're running where their slave laborers can kill you with their mind. They can take over your body, and then they can kill you with mind magic and chanting. And they're like, well, we'll just sew their mouths shut. It'll be fine. What could go wrong? This game is pretty much like just tutorial on what could go wrong. It would be like if we decided that alligators were the best food, but we didn't do anything to make that. We didn't kill them before they got to the factory or anything. We're just here's a bunch of live alligators on an assembly floor. We're gonna eat them, but we're also going to use the alligators to make the alligator steaks.
Smart alligators. They literally are this overpowered race. So I don't know how the cigar big face guys have over them. It doesn't go into it. It's just, this is the grim fact of the beginning of the game. Abe knows he's a slave. He says it in the opening cinema. And then he sees what they're planning on doing, and he runs. And they get a wanted poster of him up, shockingly fast. He runs past the security camera, and there's a wanted poster on a screen right behind him. And it's like a mugshot, so I don't know if that's your employee ID photo, and they just pasted wanted over it.
Could be, which, is kind of alarming on its own as you think about, your employer could probably make a wanted poster of you in 5 seconds if they wanted to. Just this is Brad. He's wanted by the company. We're going to eat him.
I'm not sure as a nation we're that far away from that scenario at any given moment. So you escape the factory and you meet a guy that he calls Big Head, which is a Madocan in a mask. Who's like, yo, Abe, you're the chosen one. You gotta rescue everyone. And throughout the course of the game, you go from being very weak and vulnerable to getting room-clearing magic powers. You can send this red shockwave out from yourself, and anyone who is not Madocan on the screen just explodes. And the game loves throwing the chunky meat parts directly at the screen.
Yeah, right at the camera.
They were really into here's a chunk of the guy you just exploded with your mind. Enjoy it.
I mean, we're only 4 years removed from Mortal Kombat, so it's still oh man, look at this. Let's throw some meat at the screen.
If we were to rate the darker subject matter between Mortal Kombat and this, a lot of people got upset about Mortal Kombat. They're this is highly objectionable. And this game just sort of waltzed by, and no one was this game's about slave labor who's being turned into tasty treats, but they have mind control powers that can cause someone to rupture from the inside while they scream in terror because they know they're being ripped apart. This opens with them rib cages on an assembly line being sawed. Oddworld is kind of an extremely dark game.
You're practically Darth Vader. You just run around killing everybody with your force powers. And I kind of wonder if this isn't part of this long con where they're oh, we're enslaved. Keep feeding us your product for free. And then when they finally come around to like, all right, I guess we're going to make these guys into the food. Then all of a sudden it's like, kill you with your mind magic time.
I mean, and they did sew their mouths shut, but then they gave them implements for cutting meat. So reaching up and clipping those leather straps they put through their lips is not a hard thing. It doesn't seem to stop any of them because the game is all about talking to your people. You say hello and they say hello, and you tell them to follow you and wait, and you can fart and they'll laugh. So it's really a product of its time. When there's like, we can add farting to this game and it will be hilarious.
Man, it's just, yeah.
So, and you also can do your chanting and turn circles of birds into teleporters. We have the power to kill people with your mind. We have the power to clear a room. We have a power to throw electricity all over. But to turn a bunch of birds flying into a circle into an interdimensional gateway, that is so next level. Why are these guys not ruling the planet?
I think secretly they are. I read a theory once that the most dominant species on planet Earth is not humans, it's corn. Because corn gets humans to do, like breed them and grow them and do all the work. And corn just is like, yeah, I'm just going to sit here and grow. And the humans do all the work for me.
What? But we eat the corn. The corn has no mental powers to cause us to rupture from the inside. I guess if you ate seeds and then you went and were like laying out to get a tan and the seeds warmed up, they could rupture you from the inside out. Just popcorn you to death.
I don't think that's happened yet, and it seems like with the number of people in the world, like somebody would have like been like, ooh, a handful of popcorn seeds. That seems like a good snack right before I go lay out in the sun for a while.
Give it a couple years. It's gonna happen. I mean, someone's going to make it into a YouTube challenge, and then a bunch of people are going to try it, and then it's going to get bad.
The Gory Popcorn Explosion Challenge for charity.
Top celebrities try it. Everyone's thankful they did. So, you're on this quest, and you must go to temples in each of these different races who have been extincted. I don't think extincted's a word. Have gone extinct? Whatever. And you get powers from them, and you do puzzle platforming. And much in this show's tradition, the geography in this game is whacked.
You start in the factory.
He gets in a barrel of meat, which it's just goopy meat in a barrel.
Goopy meat that's probably like someone, another of his species. So if you can imagine like escaping from a place by like climbing into a barrel of just like human guts, like that's what this is. That's Oddworld, kids.
Family-orientated fun. But then you fall out of the barrel and suddenly you're outside.
Okay.
Like, is the assembly line that carries the buckets just right above good old Mother Nature? Like, that's where the belt runs?
I mean, everything else that we've seen about how this business is run, it wouldn't shock me if they're making this product and then just kind of like throwing it out the window and forgetting all about it. Just like, we made 700 barrels today. They're out there somewhere.
Abe somehow has tasted these pies. He feels bad about this later, I imagine, when he goes through the world and realizes that they used to be like intelligent creatures that built a society, and he just ate them. But the world is beautiful, but the connective tissue between one type of zone and the next, it's not there. You go from like industrial to nature, and you keep bouncing back to industrial because you can basically warp back into the factory whenever you want to save buddies. Your goal at minimum is to save 50 Madokans.
Yeah.
If you do less than that, you get the bad ending, which they later decided wasn't canonical. You saying that they had a 5-game plan. Why would they make the bad ending? Because in the bad ending, Abe dies.
Yeah, so that can't be canon, obviously, if they're going to do a 5-game series.
We probably should talk about this ending. So if you're like, oh man, I need to play this game, you've been warned.
Yeah, stop the podcast right now. Finish the game.
Yeah, please, your new and tasty version. Whatever. You go back into the factory and you set off your super red ring mind bomb. And the board of directors is like, flood the factory with poison and kill the slaves.
That's your product. Your food product that you're filling with poison.
Also your workers you're gonna kill.
This is the end of your business.
You should have saved most of them by this point. Abe runs into the boardroom and they're like, get him. And then you shoot like Emperor-style bolts of lightning and murder the board of directors like right there.
Yeah, you really are just playing as like Darth Vader.
And then they capture you.
How?
Two of the sligs run up and like just pistol whip him. The ending, you're hanging over these twirling saw things that apparently were in the middle of the board of directors boardroom. Just they had a hole that opened up in the floor with a meat grinder in it. And the Madokans you saved decide to use their mind powers and basically burn the president of Rupture Farms alive. And then Abe's like, that's pretty cool. And they teleport you out and everyone's happy. But this one guy whose job was to clean the floors outside the boardroom escapes, rescues everyone, comes back, and murders you with mind lightning. And no one was like, we probably shouldn't have these dudes around. We probably should just like commit genocide on these things because they never show the board of directors what their powers are whatsoever other than poor management.
There's another issue I have with the board of directors in this game, and it comes in the intro when they're revealing their plan to turn all of Abe's species into snack pops. You know, like at first it's like a crisis, like sales are down and like the animals that they made food out of have all been driven extinct. And then all of a sudden like the one's like, I know, we'll turn all the Madokans into food. And they all start like cackling evilly. And it's just like, if you can imagine like a food company, they're like, oh, we accidentally like used up all the cows and now there's no more cows. But it turns out that horses taste exactly the same as cow and everybody will like it just the same. Like the board might be okay with that. They might be happy or relieved, but they're probably not going to like cackle to themselves. Finally, we get to eat horses. Yes.
Just high fives all around like horses. What are they good for? We're not cowboys anymore.
I mean, really, if you think about, coming back to this don't eat your workers thing, if you think about like the types of farm animals that we don't eat, it's usually the ones that can work. It's the horses, it's the cats, it's the dogs. Everybody's like, oh, dogs are cute. I wouldn't eat it anyway. But if it wasn't good at guarding your sheep or whatever, you might.
The things you should learn most from Abe's Odyssey is A, slave labor is bad. B, eating your workforce is bad. C, cackling when you think about eating your workforce is way bad. It's just... they're such a bad business. And if you look at like the rest of the Oddworld games, they must have just been in like their own continent or something where they're driving everyone extinct because all these creatures are around and they're fine.
It could be that this company is just really stupid.
I'm going to say yes when you're like, we're going to enslave the mind-controlled death creatures. And everything will be fine. They'll never get unhappy and be like, we should mind murder all these people.
I mean, they're probably using their mind control to make the other ones, the overlords, think that these other creatures have gone extinct when they haven't. They're like, oh, you can't eat those anymore. They're gone. And all the while, it's just like this big plan to infiltrate their factory with their death magic minds.
Because they wanted the pies themselves?
I'm not sure what their motives are.
Well, I think their motives were that they were somehow enslaved. And none of them seemed too bothered by it, really, until Abe saw what was going to happen. And then he decided to do something about it. But all the others, like, they're still working. Abe runs in, murders a room full of people, but he's still like, hi, you gotta follow me now. And the one's like, but I'm cleaning the floor right now.
Yeah, that place had like the cleanest floors. Like they have 100-strong mind murder monster workforce, and they're all just scrubbing the floor all the time.
And with the Madokans being mind murder creatures, I don't know how you make a bigger Oddworld, like a series of 5, because no matter what you do, like if you go up against them, they're gonna just mind murder you.
Yeah.
So do they just not deal with Madokans anymore? I played Stranger's Wrath. I don't think I ever played Abe's Exodus, and the controls in Munch's Odyssey are bad. But I think Stranger's Wrath was my favorite, because you got to shoot things out of your crossbow. And when you hit someone with a squirrel and it starts attacking their head, it's just funny. It's so funny. But other than beyond what we've talked about as far as gameplay goes, it's tight controls, very snappy, responsive. If you like the out of this world type of gameplay, you're real at home here.
I would even say that the really strong tight controls in Abe's is kind of what Out of This World really needed to excel. Part of the problem with Out of This World is that half the time when you get killed, you don't know if it's because you didn't solve the puzzle correctly, you did something stupid, or if it's because like the controls just suck and they were fighting you and you lost. So it takes like one of the most glaring problems with Out of This World and corrects it, and then dumps it into this insane world.
Yeah, I really enjoy the control in this game. There wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, the game screwed me out of this. It was, oh, I did not push the triangle button in time. Unless you're on the PC version, then good freaking luck. It's like a gamepad, what's that?
Yeah.
This game's never used a gamepad. Use the keyboard, stupid. Like I said before, the style of this game, it reminded me a lot of the really great world that Myst was built with. Just like that really bizarre art style that you could tell was very much its own. And every place has a different feel to it. The fart jokes are the same in every... Maybe that's the thing with this hyper-intelligent murder race is farts are so funny to them.
Yeah.
You fart and all the Medokins on the screen are like, hee 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 hee.
And they can do it at will. I mean, it's not even like this, thing that only happens once in a while at kind of intervals that are somewhat beyond your control. Like, they're just like, oh, I think I'm going to do that thing now. Like, it just, they could do it 100 times in a minute if they felt like it.
Not only is it something they do on will, it is actually part of their dialect.
Yes. So this would be like me or you laughing at like somebody using the letter R. He used an R.
It would be annoying if every time someone said R, people started laughing, but farting at the same time. We could never get anything done in society because it would be hilarious.
Wheel of Fortune would just be a totally different game. I'd like to buy a fart, please.
It's just some lady yelling, show me. How do you represent that on the Wheel of Fortune board? Just a puff?
I guess. I think there's an emoji for it, so.
I think there's an emoji for everything. So, style's good, control's good. You who doesn't really dig the puzzle platformer, you seemed okay with it.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I just really sucked at it.
Yeah, I was not good. I didn't make it to the end this time. In my 97 youth, I remember tearing through this game and then being like, oh, I didn't save enough to get the non-meat grinder ending. I better immediately play it again because it's 97. I'm in high school. I don't got much to do. Yeah, this time it was like, hey, remember this from your youth? You suck at it now.
There's so many parts of my life that follow that now.
Remember pulling out that piece of cardboard and breakdancing real cool with your friends? You broke a hip.
Remember when you used to be able to walk places without back pain?
Yet sometimes this show reminds me that I'm aging rapidly and there's nothing I can do to stop it.
Technically, in terms of like days and years and everything, I'm the older one, but you've got 5 kids, so I think you're aging faster.
I would tend to agree with you. Sometimes when they're being insane, I just stare at them and I'm like, I don't know what to do in this situation because I cannot process anything that's happening in this room right now. So, Abe's Odyssey. You can play the new and tasty version, and I'm sure it's fun. You can dig up the 97 PlayStation version, and it's still fun. I can't speak for the Game Boy version. I think it's Game Boy Advance. I have no idea how the controls on that would work. I imagine much like Doom, it would be a complete nightmare to play.
Yeah, probably.
Because you use all the buttons on that control.
Not only do you use all the buttons, you use one button as a modifier so that when you hold it down, all the buttons do different things. We talk about how the controls aren't great on the PC because you're not really supposed to use a keyboard for a platformer, but the flip side of that is having all those keys handy would actually have made it a little easier.
Having all the game speak on the number keys was beautiful. You could keep one hand up there and like do the wait and follow really easy so they don't get dropped in a meat grinder, which is another problem I have with this game. There are meat grinders just on like the floors, like the workers' floors, for no reason. It's just random meat grinders and walls of electricity and mines.
Yeah, who puts a bomb in the middle of their factory? Like, no, we'll just leave this here. Like, not only is it a safety hazard, it also just, it isn't productive. Like, when you make a factory, you want it to be as efficient as possible. Like, as few unnecessary things between, like, raw materials and finished product as you can. And they're like, oh, let's put in some floor grinders for no reason. Let's spend probably a lot of money installing these. And all they'll do is sometimes workers fall in them and they die.
I mean, with their current business plan, I'm pretty sure they're not too worried about Madokans walking into these meat grinders. So like, oh no, industrial accident, try our new product.
They're just like sweeping it up off the floor and dumping it into containers.
That factory has to smell so bad.
I had a summer job once where I worked at a cookie factory. Like the smell of like that much concentrated like sugar and vanilla, it was like sickeningly sweet. And I like sugar, but like this was just too much. I couldn't imagine like that same thing, but like with like murdered animal. Like it's not even like, you know, a slaughterhouse where at least that's like trying to be like efficient and somewhat clean. Like this is just like murdering these things wherever they happen to be, and then they sweep it up and dump it in a can.
Yeah, or don't sweep it up at all. Just leave it on the floor.
That's probably why 90% of their workforce is just like cleaning the floor all the time.
That does make sense. We solved that one.
Yes.
Go us. I mean, there's not much more to say about Abe's Odyssey other than you can mind murder everyone in this game if you so choose.
Yeah.
You can drive other animals nuts and cause them to murder each other. And he still giggles about that.
We're a few weeks into this project now of the 1997 games, and they've been all like either really good or really kind of unique or a little bit of both. Where would you rank Abe's in terms of like, you know, kind of games from around this time in terms of like how unique or innovative it is? Like no other game had like the game speak mechanic to it where you're like talking to other characters and telling them what to do. I mean, the whole thing is kind of like a bunch of escort missions, but they're not frustrating the way like a typical one is.
No, because if you lose your escort, he's just like, oh well. Abe's real callous. Like, he'll lead someone into a meat grinder and be like, that happened, I guess.
Kind of like a sociopath. He has no empathy. Everything's real matter-of-fact with him.
As far as gameplay goes, other than fixing the flashback out of the world, I'm going to take an extra step off this ledge because screw you player kind of stuff. The gameplay isn't like super innovative. It's got unique puzzles, but where it excelled over flashback and out of this world is that art style.
Yeah.
The people that made Oddworld were just fantastic artists who had a style, had a vision, and they stuck to their guns. Even though they're like mind murder farters are the heroes in our first game.
We're going to make 4 more of these.
Easily, Final Fantasy VII is the most influential one we've talked about. I have feelings about it now, but I'm not going to deny that that game was a phenomenon. This easily beats Parappa in the art style.
Yeah, although, I mean, Parappa's got a real unique look to it, too. You know, it might not be as high quality, though.
Yeah, but if you're like, do you want to look at a still frame from one of these two games and hang it in an art gallery, which are you going to pick? I'm going to pick Oddworld, because Parappa looks like a drug-induced fever dream.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
I don't really know where to place Felony 1179 in this.
Well, I mean, it was a really unique game for the time. This was pre-Grand Theft Auto 3. This whole kind of like living city, you know, get from point A to point B without getting destroyed kind of thing. It was fairly... It wasn't a high-quality game, but it was original.
Yes, I'll give it that, except for animation of humans. They dropped the ball on that one hard. But it's really, really hard to be like, this one is more innovative than that one. but in the art department, you could say that just the way they presented the world, with every once in a while using the full motion video to zoom through this landscape to give you the sense of space, and just their devotion to the art style that they choose to do, and how they stuck with that gun through basically all the Oddworld games. They kept that up. It even survived into the 3D space really well. Abe's Odyssey is a quality video game. Like, you can still go back and have a lot of fun with that game, whereas some of the ones with polygons are hard to look at this point, because the PlayStation's polygon technology was not as advanced as you remember it being, and textures don't like to sit still. It's kind of nauseating to look at now that we're used to, textures that stay still.
Games that look like they're supposed to.
Abe is still just a very good game to look at. So I would rate it thumbs up. We do every once in a while pick, is the hero a villain? And it's hard to tell on this one. You are a mind murder machine who's okay with murdering your own people, but you're fighting a genocidal corporation or board of directors. I guess it's just different levels of villainy.
I guess you could make like a crazy argument that, the Mudokons are the villains because they have mind control and blow you up with their thoughts kind of powers. And this evil, incompetent company thinks they've extincted all these species, but then they turn up later. They might just be saying that so that they stop killing them before they do run out. I don't know. But yeah, it does seem like it's probably just like different shades of evil.
I wasn't saying all the Mudokons are evil. Just Abe seems to sort of flip a switch.
Maybe he's kind of like an anti-hero. Like, he's doing the right thing, but he's going about it in just the most horrific way you can imagine. A situation like this, you don't need a good guy. You need, like, a badder guy than the bad guys.
We'll just call him a shade of bad.
He's not the hero you deserve. He's the hero you need.
He will fart on you, but then he will blow up someone with his mind that's trying to kill you. So you're like, dude, you farted on me, but you saved my life.
So he's kind of like Batman.
Yeah, I mean, that's Batman's MO. As he's pulling you up on his grappling hook, he's just like, did you fart on me? I saved your life.
I don't smell.
When my parents died, I lost the ability. Abe's Odyssey. It's good. I guess I would say final thoughts, but after I was like kind of wrapping it up, we had a half an hour of final thoughts. If you want to reach us, just look in the show notes. I've put links so we don't have to bore you with our long spiel on how to get a hold of us. Thanks everyone for downloading the show. Numbers are going up. That's awesome. Any closing thoughts or farts, Brad?
No. Next week we've got another game from 1997 coming up.
What?
Yes. Do you detect a theme going on here?
I haven't caught on to our theme yet. I'm very slow.
Next week, this is exciting. Next week we have Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
I would tell you that I haven't thought about this upcoming week since we started this project, but it would be a lie because I've been thinking about next week this whole time since you pitched this. I am so excited for Symphony of the Night.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good game. It's awesome.
I guess until then, I'm Donald, and that was Brad, and we will see you next week.
All right. There's our quote for the show. Brad talks about what might drive you to eat a dog if it's not good at